Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the BGF podcast. I'm your host, Gianluca, alongside of
Brandon.
And today we're going to keep the fantasy content rolling. We decided to give you guys a little QB tier list, sort of who we really like heading into the season. Dynasty, not redrafts. Just want to emphasize that. There's going to be some quarterbacks in here you're going to see a little lower on the list than in redrafts. We take age into consideration. We take recent performances, everything into consideration. Don't forget it's a dynasty. Anyways, let's get into it.
Before you guys kill us in the comments, this is a fantasy tier list, so don't... before you guys start with the comments, just know this is dynasty and fantasy. So anyway, we'll start off with our tier 1 of quarterbacks. These are the two guys that we believe are the head of the class for all quarterbacks. And our QB1 is Josh Allen.
Yep.
And QB2 is Patrick Mahomes. So this is our tier 1. I don't think there's much to really be said for these guys. Josh Allen, in terms of fantasy production with the rushing upside, is amazing. He's the guy you want in fantasy. I think last year Mahomes would have been my 101, but you saw how he kind of struggled during the season. We saw obviously in the playoffs was a different story, but during the regular season he kind of struggled a bit. And Josh Allen, he's just a monster no matter who he has on his team. So yeah, what do you think?
I agree with that. I had the luxury of drafting Josh Allen last season in my dynasty. I did trade him. I can't lie, I did trade him. Trade him at the time for the 102 and Anthony Richardson. Thought it was a pretty good deal, and obviously taking a huge risk here. But you know what? I'm a risky type of player in dynasties, so that's my style, and we'll see if it pays out. Anyways, yeah, Josh Allen, by far and away the best quarterback in fantasy football, in my opinion. I don't think there's anyone that comes close to him. The amount of yards this man can get in a game, both passing and rushing, is just incomparable to everyone else. And same thing with Mahomes, obviously a bit lower than Josh Allen in fantasy, but that's just because the team's not there yet. However, in the playoffs, they look really good. He did win a Super Bowl, so we'll see if that translates into next season. And I completely agree with this list.
So next up, we'll move on to the tier 2 here. Our QB3 is going to be Lamar Jackson.
Mr. Lamar, MVP Jackson.
Exactly. Obviously, he's coming off an MVP season last year, and he did have a good year. Just passing wise was a bit to be.
It was a bit iffy. I mean, he only finished the year with 3,600 yards through the air, 24 touchdowns. It's not as good as like the other guys or people ahead of him. However, he did have 821 yards in the ground game with 5 rushing touchdowns. This is where Lamar Jackson's upside is really at, especially in fantasy. He has monster numbers on the ground, and we all know rushing quarterbacks are a lot more valuable in fantasy than just passing quarterbacks. They get you more points because of the rushing touchdown upside, all that. Rushing touchdowns worth more than passing touchdowns. So Lamar Jackson is our number 1 on tier 2. Moving on.
And he did finish as the QB4 last year, so a good year overall for Lamar.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, our QB4 is going to be CJ Stroud.
Mr. Stroud, yeah.
After his rookie season. How old is he right now? CJ Stroud.
23, 2, I think.
It's all popping up, but anyway, 22, 23 years old. Coming off one of the best 22, so one of the best rookie seasons of all time, really. He won Offensive Rookie of the Year, and we saw him lead his team, and he'll be one of the better QBs going forward the rest of the way. And I'd expect him to be at the top of this list for the next 10 years.
Years to come, yeah. Especially with that young Houston team, that young core on offense. You got Tank Dell, Nico Collins emerging as one of the best young wide receivers in the game. And CJ Stroud commanding that team. All you got to do now is get him a run game, and this guy is going to be deadly.
I just think it is obviously kind of high because he finished as a QB11, but he did miss some time. I don't know if we're going a bit too premature on him being this high, but anyway, we got him here, and I think it's still deserved.
Hey, listen, where was the Justin Herbert hype at 21 when he finished his rookie season?
About here, so
it's fine.
I saw him. The thing is, I don't know if it was last year or the year before when Herbert was going ahead of Mahomes, which I always found crazy even at the time.
I think it was the year before, because it was like recent from his rookie season.
Yeah, that was kind of crazy, but Herbert's still obviously high up on the list, but the hype was out of control at that time.
Yeah.
Anyway, next up is our QB5 We got Jalen Hurts. He finished as the QB2 last year.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, started off the first 11 weeks, the Eagles were one of the best teams in the league. Not one of the best team in the league.
Yeah.
And then in the last few weeks, they slowed down. But even though you look at Jalen Hurts in that time frame, he was still putting up pretty decent numbers. He had a few
average
bad
20 something points a week, which is really, really good in a quarterback.
Yeah, if your quarterback can get you anything, especially these top tier guys, 25 plus, you're gonna obviously take that. So no matter what, he'll always be able. And even this year, he was battling an injury on his knee, so he wasn't rushing as much, and still he saw good numbers. So I feel like Jalen Hurts, although if this was a real life ranking quarterbacks, he wouldn't be this high, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But for fantasy wise, I'm always gonna like Jalen Hurts. I feel like this is a guy that we did obviously our buy lows video, and I feel like this is a guy you could kind of maybe buy low because people are gonna be low on him after the season he just had.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't hate trying to go and buy Jalen Hurts right now in Dynasty.
Just check his value, see where he's at. Obviously, we're expecting a little dip in the rushing touchdown because the tush push is not going to be as effective without Jason Kelce under center.
Hey, he might come back still.
He might come back. That's true. He's not officially retired yet, but it looks like he's going to retire. Just the way he's talking, his manners, and whatever. But I still like the rushing upside on this guy. Some similar thing to Lamar. I don't think as effective, but he does good in the tush pushes, and we'll see what it looks like without Jason Kelce or with Jason Kelce. But yeah, I don't like Hurts here.
Yeah.
Moving on to our next quarterback, I think QB number 6 right now we have on the board. A lot of people forgetting about this guy. He was out for the year, Mr. Joe Burrow, one of the best young quarterbacks in this game today. He does have a little bit of injury concern, I think, at this point in his career because this is his second big injury, but I don't think we should be scared of him. When Herbert's playing and when Herbert is healthy, he is one of the most accurate passers in the game, and he just absolutely dominates, throws touchdowns, doesn't matter who he's playing against. I love this guy. He can have a week where he goes for like 400 yards, 5 touchdowns pretty consistently. He has these huge spike weeks, which is why we have him ranked this high. And yeah, what do you think about Mr. Joe Herbert? Burrow, sorry.
Now for Joe Burrow, I feel like his value is even higher because he is attached to a great receiver in Jamar Chase. I feel like him and Chase are always going to bring up each other's value because they can't have.
Wait, you just said Chase is a good receiver.
They'll always bring up because they're always going to be able to have huge spike weeks, and Burrow's another guy because he's coming off a really rough year. You could maybe get on the cheap, but with him, I don't feel like it's as much. I feel like everyone knows how good Joe Burrow is, so I don't think you can get him as cheap as maybe a Jalen Hurts. And I think you hit the nail on the head. It's obviously that's the only concern with him is the injuries. It's the second time now that he's missed a majority of his season from injuries. So and plus 20. Can't believe he's already 27 years old. Though.
I know, that is pretty crazy. Yeah, that is pretty crazy.
He came in a bit older, obviously, when he got drafted, but man, Joe Burrow, 27, feels like he just got into the league.
I feel like he's the same age as Mahomes.
No, I think Mahomes is 28. Checking out.
Let me just double check that. 28.
28,
okay, they're a year apart.
That's crazy.
Still.
I didn't know that they were a year difference. Anyway, next up, we got Justin Herbert. Now, this is a guy that's going to have a lot of hype on him because Jim Harbaugh is coming in. Brandon Staley's out of there. And we know Justin Herbert is one of the best hypothetical quarterbacks in the NFL. But, joking aside, the talent's obviously there with Justin Herbert. Yeah. We saw it, especially in his rookie year and just every year in the regular season. He's a very good quarterback. And he has had to deal with a lot of guys injured and his own injury as well last year. Where... he had surgery and missed the end of the year. Early on in the year, I had Justin Herbert in fantasy, so he was doing pretty solid early on, and then towards the end, it kind of went to shit, and then he got injured. So
yeah, I feel like as soon as the Chargers sort of dipped in play and they were just started losing, that's when he started to dip as well. Then he had that finger thing, the shoulder thing at one point, and goes to IR. Charger season's done, but like you said, Jim Harbaugh comes in and he is the savior for this team. Everyone is excited. I've seen Quentin Johnson promise a breakout year.
Yeah, I was big on Quentin Johnson, but I don't know. After seeing him play this year,
I don't know with that either. But I saw Justin Herbert was really excited, and I do think Jim Harbaugh will make this offense significantly better, just because of like the dynamic he brings versus what Staley brought. And I know Herbert's excited, so when you have a team excited, they're going to be ready to play, and the Chargers do have talent on offense. They just haven't really panned out because of injuries, like Brandon was saying, and all that. So I don't hate Herbert here, but in my opinion, this is probably Herbert's last year to prove it. And if he doesn't do it,
he's got a lot of time.
If he doesn't do it, he's going to be significantly lower in my list next season.
I don't know. I don't think this is. Bro, I think he's 25 years old. I don't think.
I don't know.
Everyone's first year with a new head coach, but obviously this year too, they should have a lot better of a run game. Which since he's been in Los Angeles, that hasn't really been the case. Eckler's more of a his rushing wise, especially this year, he took a big dip, and we'll see if him having more where the attention's not all going to be on him, if that'll help him out and about the Chargers offense. We'll see what weapons he's looking at. They have the 5th pick in the draft, so they'll probably end up with one of Malik Neighbors or Brock Bowers, maybe Rome Odunze if that somehow happens. But
who knows?
I'd expect probably Brock Bowers right now would probably be the favorite for the Chargers to get, and that should be another weapon. And I expect Keenan Allen to come back, so he's gonna have the weapons now, and there shouldn't be any excuses going into next year. And we'll move on to our next tier of quarterbacks, our tier 3 guys. These are our guys that are probably going to go in the second round. Maybe our first guy here and second. Maybe our first 2 guys could sneak into the back end of the first, but most of these guys are going to be second to third round picks in a startup draft.
And these are the type of guys where we wouldn't be surprised by next year they're higher, lower, depending on the season.
Yeah, these guys can all really fluctuate up and down. So our next guy, this is QB8. I think QB8, Anthony Richardson. We obviously know he played 3 games last year, and in those 3 games, fantasy-wise at least, he looked amazing.
Really good.
We know the upside is going to be there for Anthony Richardson. You look in his 3 games, 21 fantasy points in PPR, 17, 29, and then he got injured in that Tennessee game where he went out early with a shoulder injury.
Mm-hmm.
And 21 years old, still very young. And my question is, if he was in this draft class, do you think he would be the 101?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't.
Just because of all the hype on Caleb, but I do think he would be a first round guy.
Like if you had you obviously in our dynasty you have the 101.
Yeah.
If someone you have Anthony Richardson, but let's say you didn't have Anthony Richardson.
Yeah.
And someone came to you with Anthony Richardson for the 101, would you be willing to do that offer? That trade?
I would listen to it, but he would have to add something more, maybe like another pick. I would listen to it. I do like Anthony Richardson a lot. I do think he's very, very good. He is also 21 years old, super young quarterback. He came into the league at 20, which is just insane. He was doing what he did. He is the closest prospect I think I've ever seen to a Josh Allen reincarnation.
Cam Newton too.
Cam Newton as well, just because of like his style of play and what Josh Allen looked like as a rookie. Just the raw talent is there. He made a lot of mistakes. Same thing with Richardson. Obviously, we have a very, very small sample size. Only played 3 games. But I do love his upside. His rushing upside's there. His passing upside's there. He has a cannon of an arm. He's the type of guy that can end up every single game of the season with like 2 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdowns pretty easily. Lock in 20 to 25 points a week consistently. Mm-hmm. And if that's the type of guy you're getting, I don't hate it for the 101.
Yeah, me neither. Especially if he does fulfill his upside, he has a shot to be in that tier 1 eventually. Probably not next year. By next year, you could move into that tier 2 and then give it 3-4 years. And I wouldn't be surprised if he does enter that Mahomes Allen territory fantasy-wise. I'm not saying in
fantasy-wise, exactly. Guys, this is fantasy.
Exactly. So, yeah, I really like Anthony Richardson, and I think he's probably the top of this tier for me. I don't hate him going behind our next guy, Caleb Williams, who is the projected 101 in this draft class. Who knows where he will go? Will the Bears take him at 101, or will they keep Fields? Will someone trade up for 101? Who knows? We're still far out from that. But yeah, you look at Caleb Williams. He's been hyped up since his if he went out in his freshman year, he might have even been the first pick back then. So
yeah,
he's been hyped up for a few years, and obviously we see this every year when there's a consensus number 1 guy. It gets to draft time, and then people start asking questions, and people start saying, "Oh, I have Drake Maye ahead of him. I have Jayden Daniels ahead of him." Actually, we'll see where he goes in the draft capital, but I would expect 101, so that's why I have him here. And I think we could group all these guys together. Our next guy is going to be Drake Maye and then Jayden Daniels right after. We kind of have them all grouped together. I feel like they're kind of tiered together because we haven't seen the play yet, and we know and we do know that they do have big upside. Do you have anything you want to on Drake Maye and Jayden Daniels?
The only thing is you can maybe change Jayden Daniels for Drake Maye, but that's nothing serious. I think they're all in a similar thing. Jayden Daniels, I think, has the most rushing upside out of all three, in my opinion. Just look at his numbers in the Heisman year. Also, fun fact I want to shout out here: Caleb Williams is 22 years old, so Anthony Richardson is actually younger than him.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I did not
realize that.
that's just crazy. Anyways, moving on. Don't hate this at all. I think these guys have a ton of potential. They have depending where they line, their floor can change. But Caleb Williams most likely going to Chicago.
Yeah.
And Drake Maye is most likely going to Washington, which I hate that, but I don't at the same time because new ownership group, new everything, so they're coming in fresh, clean slate. And then Jayden Daniels the wild card at 3. Does he go to New England? Where does he go? Do the Vikings make a move for him? Jayden Daniels is going to be the most interesting quarterback this year in the draft just to see where he ends up because I think 1 and 2 is set in stone. Then depending on where Jayden Daniels ends up, I can have him higher on this list. Just, depending on circumstances, team, whatever it is.
Yeah, Daniels is one guy that you could see him going as high as 3, or you could even see him dropping to like 11, 12 or something.
Yeah.
I don't think he drops past 11, obviously.
I don't think so. Yeah. Because I think the Falcons take him at 8 or 7, wherever they're drafting.
I forgot about the Falcons. They're also in need of a quarterback. That's so. Yeah, I don't know where the NFL is really on him. I know obviously NFL Twitter and the Dynasty community is very high on him. I just wonder in NFL circles how high they are on him. But we'll see that when it comes to draft time. And next up we got Kyler Murray as our QB 10, 11?
QB, yeah.
10 or 11 anyway. Kyler Murray obviously coming off a huge injury last year, but came back and left right off where he started.
He showed us where he belongs and why he's such a good quarterback. And sorry for disrespecting you, Kyler. I was one of those guys, but
I wasn't.
You weren't. You were good. You were big on Kyler. You were big on Kyler. Not big, but like you respected him. Yeah. And he's still 26 years of age. Very, very young guy. I don't think he's going anywhere. I don't think Arizona's making a move for a quarterback this year in the draft. I think they must absolutely surround him with weapons, and I think that's what they're going to do, and build towards competing with Kyler Murray. And should be exciting. He comes in. I remember against against Houston, he made a crazy throw. I don't remember which game it was. I think it was Houston. Made a crazy play, and then we're just like, yeah, that's Kyler, and forgot about him, but he's here, and I like Kyler.
Yeah, I also like Kyler. We saw last year when he wasn't there, they were like in the basement of the league, and would they have one win? I think their only win.
Joshua Dobbs carried them the first 4 weeks of the season.
No, I'll give it to Josh Dobbs. He did have a good first 8 weeks that he was in Arizona, but Kyler Murray came in, and you saw he was a franchise caliber player.
Yeah, he was.
He came in and he got them 3-4 wins just on his own. And I still really like Kyler Murray, and like we said earlier in fantasy, rushing upside is king. So Kyler Murray, is always gonna have that, and I really like Kyler Murray here, and I wouldn't mind taking him.
I wouldn't mind taking him either.
Next up, we got my guy, Brock Purdy.
Your boy.
I feel like he's still not getting the respect he deserves. I don't see why guys like Trevor Lawrence, Jordan Love, who we're gonna talk about later on, are still being ranked. Jordan Love, I can maybe see because he was a first round pick and whatever. I can maybe see it, but even like Trevor Lawrence off the year he had last year, I don't know how these guys are still like. If you have them ranked ahead of him, okay, but I see people having them like way ahead of them, like it's not even close. And to me, I feel like Purdy, he's gonna put up the numbers in this offense. I expect Ayuk's still gonna stay around, and even if he doesn't, he's still gonna have weapons like George Kittle and Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey. So no matter what, I feel like Brock Purdy. People just gotta
wake up.
Exactly.
They gotta respect it. Ignore the narrative. He's a 7th round pick. It doesn't matter. He can play. That's what you gotta look at. What he does on the football field. All right, you want to say his team is stacked? Fine, that's a fair point. But he's still the one passing the football. He's still the one with the stats. He will throw for those 250 yards, 2 touchdown games, which is what you want from a guy in this range. And like Brandon said earlier, Trevor Lawrence is not that far off from him. I get it. He was a first overall pick. And, he has so much more potential than Purdy, so they say. But what has he really done in the NFL compared to Brock Purdy that Brock Purdy can't do? Trevor Lawrence is not taking games over, throwing for 400 yards consistently, 5 touchdowns, just dominating defenses. He is putting up similar numbers to Brock Purdy, maybe a bit better if you want to go down that route, fine. Maybe a bit more rushing upside, but they're not far off. Mm-hmm. And people got to realize that. They're in the same tier, in our opinion. Well, we're going to get into that, sorry, spoiler. But, yeah, I like Brock Purdy. I think he's a great quarterback, and he's going really, really low right now in Dynasty, so don't be scared to take him as a solid QB2. Very, very solid super flex play, and, yeah.
And even, he had a better year than both of them last year, so and all this stuff with Jordan Love. First half of the year, what did Jordan Love do?
I'll tell you what he did.
What was he? He finished the QB. I think he did finish actually ahead of Brock Purdy, but
QB5 last year. But first
they were basically the same. Plus, we saw obviously Purdy in the second half of games. The Niners were blowing out teams most games, so he didn't really play in a lot of second halves, and he didn't play the last game of the year. So I feel like if he did play more, he would have probably finished out of Jordan Love. But that's another conversation. We'll move on. We just talked about these two guys, so Trevor Lawrence and Jordan Love, we'll put them in the same, talk about them at the same time. They round off our tier 3, and Trevor Lawrence, first off, he's going to always be, there's not much lower you could really go with Trevor Lawrence.
I don't think so.
With how hyped up he was as a prospect, there's always going to be hope from people, and now he's going into year 4. He's going to be playing for that contract. I'd expect him to be motivated to get that huge deal.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to get it this offseason. I feel like they're going to let him play out his 4th year and then
they'll see. So?
Yeah, because if they're going to have to, any contract he's going to take, it's going to be he's going to want to reset the market. So
yeah, most likely because he's going to be that younger quarterback seeking an extension.
And off the year, I don't think his year was that bad. I feel like people kind of shit on him because the way it ended, where they lost to the Titans and didn't make the playoffs at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it was that bad of a year, and I still have a lot of belief in Trevor Lawrence. I just think I'll take Purdy ahead of him. And then next up, Jordan Love. He had a good, solid rookie year.
He had a decent rookie year towards the back end, especially like you said. However, my one thing with Jordan Love is don't forget what he looked like at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
I want everyone to remember that guy. He was considered being benched at one point of the season. Don't forget about that. So we'll see. Next season, teams are going to, play a little bit differently. Jordan Love was a rookie last year. He got away with a few things. We'll see what he does this season when teams are actually focused on him and try to target his weaknesses. I don't think he's as good as people are making him out to be. He ain't no Aaron Rodgers. He ain't no Brett Favre. Get that out of your head. And he's playing for a contract here. I think he's playing on his 5th year right now. I think. I'm not too sure.
They might give him an extension this offseason. I don't know.
Listen, if they give him an extension, I think that is the best move for the Green Bay Packers. As a Vikings fan, I love it. I love it. But listen, he hasn't proven much yet. Let's just pump the brakes a little bit. He shouldn't be going as high as he is right now in some dynasties. I would take a lot of these quarterbacks ahead of him, and we have him ranked towards the middle of the pack. I think it's pretty fair. We'll see what he does next year. He might go higher, he might go lower, but you heard it here first. He's going to regress.
Yeah, I've done a few mock drafts so far this offseason, and I've seen him going back end, middle, first round in the startups, which to me is kind of crazy. I saw him going ahead of Justin Herbert in one of them, which, in my opinion, I wouldn't do. I feel like Jordan Love's one of those guys. I see the potential. Like I see maybe next year he has like a great year, and then by next offseason, you could put him in that type of category, which we'll see how it plays out. But right now, I feel like it's a bit too premature. Half a good season, to me, isn't enough to be really propped up that high up.
Mm-hmm.
To me, if he's back end 2nd, early 3rd, that's where I'll start to take him, because we know in Superflex Dynasty, the quarterbacks are going to be super valuable. So I would grab him there, but I think people need to pump the brakes a bit on Jordan Love. I do agree he does have the talent and he could be great, but it's a bit too early in my opinion. And I know people want to be early on this stuff, but I wouldn't do it personally. Anyway, next up, we're going to move on to Tier 4. Our first guy in this tier is Justin Fields.
Mm-hmm.
So in this tier, it's kind of guys that, well, I feel like Fields isn't really in the same. He's not in the same position as these other 3 guys.
Yeah.
But this is kind of guys that we know who they are, and they're kind of they're not too old, but they're not young. They're kind of just, we know what they are right now. And for Fields, he's kind of at a crossroads in his career. He's obviously going into year 4, like Trevor Lawrence, and he's probably going to get traded this offseason. Who knows where he's going to go right now. The favorites are kind of looking like Atlanta, Pittsburgh,
and someone else I can't remember.
New England might be. I think New England's going to take a quarterback, so we know the teams are looking for quarterbacks, and we'll see where he ends up going. I know you're not a big fan of Justin Fields, but in real life, I'm kind of iffy on him. But for fantasy-wise, I'm still a fan because
I don't hate the fantasy-wise stuff. I get it. The rushing upside
exactly.
there.
So because if he's going to start, we saw it 2 years ago. He was one of the best fantasy quarterbacks, and he didn't even have to play that great. Even this year, he didn't have to play that great second half of the year, and he still had good numbers. So I feel like the only thing in Dynasty, if you're going to take Fields, is how long will he be a starter? If you're going to invest big onto him, how long will he be a starter, and how long is the value going to last? So
that's why we have him a little lower here.
Yeah, he's kind of middle of the pack right now.
Yeah, he's one of those young quarterbacks that, like, if you get him, might be a one and done type of thing. This might be his last year as a starter, but who knows? Maybe he finds a new home somewhere else and just absolutely dominates. But anyways, the next 3 guys we want to talk about here, I wanted to group them together. I think they're pretty even, and considering where they are right now. So you got Dak Prescott, Tua Tagovailoa, and Jared Goff. I think they all have really similar styles. We all know what to expect from them. Maybe you can rank Tua a little bit higher because he has a better offense, but I don't even.
And he's slightly younger. So like maybe you can rank Tua higher, but we know what we have in Tua. We know what we have in Dak. We know what we have in Goff. Concrete legs, no problem. Pocket passers, and they shred defenses. That's what they're supposed to do. But there's a lot of question marks around some of these guys regarding the touchdown to interception ratios. Jared Goff, I believe, was the best player out of these 3 last season. It doesn't matter what Dak Prescott had as numbers. Beginning of the season, Dak wasn't too great. We can't forget that, and I think Goff had the most consistent play out of them 3. I like Goff the most out of them, but group them together. You know what you have in them. Pocket passers. They're going to get you the passing yards, the passing numbers, but they won't get like 25 points consistently. And for me, these guys are solid QB2s that you're going to have in Superflex. And these are the type of guys, if you have them, you're going to feel super comfortable starting them every week as your second quarterback. And these are the type of guys that you just feel nice with. For me, out of these 3, I feel like Dak Prescott is who I prefer. I feel like in terms of rushing, he has a bit more upside compared to these guys. And just as an NFL quarterback in general, I feel like he's probably the best out of these 3. So I'm in the MVP conversation this year. I don't know how much validity there was in that, but his numbers did look very good. So I'll give him that. And when you're looking at fantasy, numbers are going to play the biggest factor. So
yeah,
those are our 3 guys here. And the last guy in this tier, he doesn't really fit the same category as these guys, but I wouldn't tier him with the guys under. So we're going to go with J.J. McCarthy. His value right now is really up and down. To me, it could fluctuate where he could be here, a bit higher than this, or it could be even lower, depending. It really depends. It really depends the draft capital, where he goes in the draft. We've heard that team like Minnesota could pick him 11, maybe Atlanta at 8, which would shock me. I wouldn't be taking him that high. I'm not. I know you're a bigger believer in J.J. McCarthy than I am.
I am a huge believer in this kid. Listen, I get it. He had the team in Michigan. He had the run game. He had everything going for him. But look, some of the throws he made in Michigan were just wow. Some like sidearm stuff he did, I was just mesmerized me. This kid is good. I get it. He needs a team to win. He can't do everything on his own, but he has the arm talent. He's there. He has the pocket presence. He has the mobility. He can move around in the pocket. The arm talent's there. You put him on a team that has pieces, this guy can do some damage. I mean, look at Brock Purdy. Not the same situation as him in college, but he did have a decent team in college where he was able to put up some numbers. You put him in a San Francisco offense that has the pieces, he will produce. I think J.J. McCarthy is a similar type of mold as Purdy, that you put him in the right team, this guy's going to absolutely dominate. And I'm really high on J.J. McCarthy, and I would not be upset if the Vikings take him at 11.
And I feel like people also sleep on his athleticism. He is pretty athletic for
for what he is.
Yeah, for what people, the way people speak of him. But for me, for JJ McCarthy, I'm not like out on him or in on him. I feel like I'm just on the fence right now, and I want to see where he goes and what situation.
You want to see situation first.
I just want to see more of JJ McCarthy before I make a decision on where I'm at with him. So that's who we got here at Tier 4. This guy, by the start of the season, it could be a lot higher, it could be a lot lower. We'll see where it goes, but right now we're kind of we're in the middle.
We're in the middle. I'd put him higher. Personally, I have him number 1 quarterback on this list, on this tier.
You have him ahead of Justin Fields.
Ahead of everyone. I'd even consider putting him ahead of Jordan Love.
Hey, that I don't know about, but it's possible that he does prove everyone wrong and ends up being a great quarterback. But we'll move on now to Tier 5. These are guys that we believe are right now. A lot of these guys are in different points of their careers.
Yeah.
So these are kind of bridge quarterbacks in your dynasty team. Yeah. Guys that could do a job as a QB2 but aren't solidified like a Goff, a Tua, Dak.
Except for one.
That you're super comfortable with.
Except for one.
But the one, how long does he have left? And anyway, let's start it off. Kirk Cousins, Tier 5. You can definitely make an argument for him to be in this Tier 4, but I feel like really at 35 years old, coming off the injuries coming off, I feel like this is kind of just safe to put him here at Tier 5. He could obviously jump, and if I have Kirk Cousins as my QB2, which I do actually have in one of my dynasty teams, I'm still feeling comfortable with him there. We'll see where he ends. Also, him not knowing which team he's going to play for is also another thing that's kind of in the air with him on his rankings. If anyone, you're the Kirk Cousins guy, so I'll give you the floor on this one.
I'm going to tell you now. If you have a fantasy team, a dynasty team specifically, that's lacking that QB1 for this season, go get Kirk Cousins. Do not be scared of his Achilles tear. Do not be scared of where he's going to end up. He will play for Minnesota. This guy, not too long ago, just got a procedure done to himself where he bought grills. This man is the most a religious person possible, most like hippie-esque player possible, and he bought grills. He is committed to Minnesota. I don't care what anyone says. He is committed to this team. Jefferson wants him back. Addison wants him back. The team wants Kirk back. He will be a Viking. Do not be scared to take Kirk Cousins. He is an extremely buy low right now, and he has the upside. Look at his play through the first 6-7 weeks of the season before he got hurt. He was playing at an MVP level. I do not care what anyone tells me. Throwing for 300 consistently, 2+ touchdowns minimum a week. This guy will win you your weeks in fantasy.
I kind of agree. He was on an MVP. I don't know if he was the MVP there, but he wasn't
because he's Kirk Cousins, but he was playing like the MVP.
Yeah, he was having a good year.
Very good year.
Take the best year of his career.
Take him. Don't be scared of Kirk. He will throw for a lot of yards. He will throw for a lot of touchdowns. He has the team around him to do that. Do not be scared. He will win you weeks.
And you're not confident he's going to stay in Minnesota?
I am confident. He just got grills.
I don't know how much I'm reading into that, but anyway, let's move on to our next guy. Anyway, starting now from this Tier 5, we're not gonna give as much
background.
We're gonna go a bit quicker now on these guys. Deshaun Watson, another guy. It's crazy how many guys had season-ending injuries this year. Because
last year was bad, yeah.
It's another guy's season-ending injury, and the decline on this guy has been.
It's been ugly.
It's been crazy because Deshaun Watson was one of the players that when he was in Houston was one of my favorite to watch in the NFL. I really like Deshaun Watson, but ever since the incident that we all know about, that we don't really got to go into details on, it's just been a huge decline. He got his money, and even when he was healthy, the numbers don't look pretty. And you're really just hoping that, because you know he's going to be locked in as a starting quarterback, just the money they paid him, they have no choice. So he's going to be starting in Cleveland, and we know they do still have good offensive weapons. I saw Kevin Stefanski that he can make something happen. And at this point, this is a guy I don't really mind buying because he's dirt cheap right now. People don't want anything to do with Deshaun Watson, so
take a
chance. I don't hate it, and yeah, he just the decline is there. Not much to really be said about Deshaun Watson.
No. Next guy up here, we got Bryce Young. Very, very ugly first season. But we do have some hope in him. If he's going for dirt cheap in fantasy, I would take a chance on him. I would see what he's worth, see his value, see who has him, where they see him, and whatnot. It can't get any uglier than last season, in my opinion. I think last season was pretty bad. This year they're going to build a team, help him out, and we'll see what he does next year. But yeah, Bryce Young.
Next up, we got a guy from his draft class. I was drafted in the second round. Will Levis. This is a guy in our buy low video that we had. And I'm still big on Will Levis. I feel like when he came in last year, he did look very good. And he does have the traits, tall, big arms. So if you have a chance to buy Will Levis, you can get him for cheap. I feel like people are going to be kind of high on him right now just because he is going to be the starter. So that's always going to juice up your value, especially in Superflex leagues. But he's a guy if you can get him for cheaper, I don't mind taking him. And I like him here. And it wouldn't surprise me if he's higher up next year into that tier 4, maybe tier 3 if it goes very well for him.
Yeah, now we're getting back into that tier 5, and we got a guy in Baker Mayfield who, you know what, had a very good year last year considering what type of player he is. If he stays in Tampa, I would think he'd have a similar season. Not too great, not too bad. You know what you have in Baker. You know his floor, you know his ceiling. He's sort of capped where he's at, and that's why he's down here in tier 5.
Next up, we got Daniel Jones. We talked about the buy low video. Another guy I had, 26 years old, a lot of rushing upside, and people, like I said in that video, people are low on Daniel Jones, so he's another guy I don't mind taking, and I could see him again in that tier 4 with Tua and Jared Goff as being a solid QB2, and they paid him a lot of money, so he's another guy that's going to be starting for a long time in New York, and I like Daniel Jones here in tier 5.
Yeah, and the last guy in tier 5, we got Mr. Matthew Stafford, getting a little older now in age. Don't hate his talent. I just think he's 36 years of age. Not his most productive season ever. He is obviously declining a little bit. But that's not his fault. It's just, age. That's what happens in the NFL. Plus, that Rams team in general has gotten older, but they have rejuvenated Puka Nacua. That kid's been an absolute phenom. So maybe with Puka Nacua, you can take Stafford as a QB2. I don't hate it. And yeah, he's going to round off our tier 5 here.
Yeah, now going into tier 6, these are guys that this could be their last year as starters. Yeah. That if you made this list next year and they're not starting quarterbacks, it would not surprise me in the slightest. And these are guys that we're very low on. So first off, Aaron Rodgers. If you're on a contender, he's a guy that you can buy. You can get him probably for dirt cheap. I wouldn't be surprised if he has a great year this year, but this is the last year on his contract, I think.
I believe so. Last year on his contract, or second last.
So it's kind of risky with Aaron Rodgers. He could be retired by next year. Who knows? 40 years of age. He's kind of, the clock's ticking, and it's on a year-by-year basis with Aaron Rodgers now. And so he's a guy that I don't hate for contending teams, but anything more than that, if you're expecting more than 1 year out of Aaron Rodgers, I wouldn't. So
yeah,
he's at the top of tier 6.
Yeah, and then moving on along, we got a guy with maybe a bit of upside, Michael Penix Jr., older quarterback coming into the class as a rookie. He's 24, 25 years of age. I'm not too sure. But he had the talents. We saw what he did in Washington. He has the arm. He has the thing. My only concern with Michael Penix Jr. is why is he not throwing?
He's 23.
Okay, he's not that bad. I thought he was a bit older. Why is he not throwing at the combine? What's he scared of? What's he hiding? That's sort of scaring me away from Michael Penix Jr. right now. But if you told me that after that game, I would have been really high on him, but sort of a little lower now that he's not throwing at the combine. Things is just looking a little weird. Plus, he has that injury concern, the injury history, and yeah, that's why we have him down here in tier 6.
Yeah, for me on Penix, it's really just the injury history that does scare me. I feel like he might go very low in the NFL draft, a lot lower than expected.
Yeah.
Next up in this tier, Geno Smith. He had a great bounce back 2 years ago, but last year kind of came back down to earth.
Mm-hmm.
He's still solid. He's still a guy that I don't mind putting in as a QB2 in my lineup, but another guy that Seattle's going to be looking to upgrade on him. If it's not this year, next year, in the coming years, they're going to be looking for another quarterback with a new head coach. So I don't think there's a lot of longevity in having Geno Smith in your dynasty team. So he's a guy that, obviously, like I said, if you're a contending team, maybe keep him for a year. But if you could trade him and get some decent value for him,
go for it.
Yeah, go for it. I wouldn't mind doing that.
I traded him.
What did you end up getting from?
I'm gonna go look at my team. I'm not too sure, but
I think it was
a pretty good trade. I'm pretty sure. I got I think a first out of that. Yeah, I got his first.
Yeah, I think you had some. I think it was a first, but you had added McLaurin or something.
Yeah, I added McLaurin for I don't care. I'm taking that all day.
Yeah. Anyway.
I'm taking that all day.
Yeah. Anyway, let's move on to the next guy.
Mr. Russell Wilson. I mean,
another guy, steep decline.
Steep decline. We saw what he looked like in Denver ever since getting traded out of Seattle. Hasn't been pretty, and he might not be playing for a team next season. So I would just stay away from him for now, and get away from Russ.
For me on Russ, I told you I actually don't hate Minnesota going for him if they do draft like a McCarthy or something. But I don't think he was that bad last year. Like really,
he wasn't horrible.
People shit on him, but I don't think he was that terrible. He only had like 8 picks last year, so
yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, Russell, he's low. You're in the tier 6, and we'll move on to the next guy, Gardner Minshew, who I expect to not even really be starting this year. So, he did have a good year. He's one of the best backups in the NFL. And we'll see if I think he's a free agent this year, so we'll see if he stays to back up Richardson in Indianapolis, or if he does go elsewhere to maybe be a starter.
Like Brandon said, perfect bridge quarterback. Mm-hmm. Vikings need one if Kirk Cousins doesn't come in.
I actually never even considered him for Minnesota.
He's a rumored guy.
He would be interesting there, and I don't see why he wouldn't go be like a bridge quarterback there instead of being a backup in Indy.
Somewhere else, yeah.
We'll see. I guess it's whoever's gonna pay the most is gonna get his services. And our last quarterback, our
bottom of the barrel, Mr. Irrelevant in our list at least.
Yeah.
It's Derek Carr. I mean, what more can we say? It's Derek Carr.
Yeah, we're both not big fans of Derek Carr.
Yeah, he has some games where he looks good, and he has some, but he's also Derek Carr. He's gonna throw like 3 interceptions to go alongside that game, and didn't have a horrible season to be fair to him, but it's just we know where he's at. Okay, maybe we can put him ahead of Russell and Gardner Minshew. Maybe it was.
But it was typical Derek Carr. When the season's lost, he starts showing up. In the games that don't matter, he starts looking good. This is typical Derek Carr. We've seen it.
When it matters, his highest week was week 7 against Jacksonville. He got 18 points.
Well, look at him to end the year. He always does this well.
Yeah, that's Derek Carr. That's Derek.
If you're in a playoff push and you're looking for a quarterback to win your games, Derek Carr's your guy. But season long and dynasty for the years to come, I don't like Derek Carr. I don't know how long he's going to be the starter in New Orleans.
Unless they get a quarterback. I think he's back next year, but I wouldn't be surprised if they go get a quarterback to just sort of compete with him.
Yeah, especially with... I still don't even know why they were in cap hell. I don't know why they even bothered to make this move 2 years ago.
Yeah, I don't know.
Anyway, that caps off our QB tier list. We're going to have our wide receiver or running backs next week. We'll
probably
see.
Receivers.
Yeah, probably receivers. So stay tuned for that. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. And actually, before we go, I just want to say thank you for your support on our last 2 videos, especially the last video. You guys have been loving the Dynasty content, and we're going to keep bringing it for you guys. Keep the comments coming, positive or negative.
We'll take all of them.
We'll take them all, and we'll give you our reasoning. We'll answer you guys. We're going to answer back to all comments, so leave us a comment, leave us a like, subscribe, and
don't forget to follow us on social.
Yeah, that
X, Instagram, and TikTok, BGF Pod. And, see you guys next week in the next one.